Welcome to a new series where we take tech on the road, explore a travel destination, and test the gear out in real life. This is Field Tested. The Kingdom of Bhutan is a mountainous, landlocked country in the Himalayas, nestled between China and India. The landscape is high mountains, sheer cliffs, and narrow valleys. Of Bhutan's 750,000 people, over 75% practice Buddhism. They have an average life expectancy of around 70 years old, and most people in rural areas are still living traditional agricultural lifestyles. Bhutan officially opened to tourism in the 1970s, but remains relatively untouched. Known as the happiest country on earth, Bhutan has focused on environmental sustainability and the happiness of the people, rather than economic development and modernization. For this trip to Bhutan, I'm taking along the Fuji GFX 50S, medium format mirrorless camera that was announced at Photokina in 2016. The GFX is using the same 50 megapixel Sony sensor as the Hasselblad medium format mirrorless and the Pentax 645Z. Like all of the Fuji X series cameras, the finishing on this is just lovely, and looking at it, it does have a beautiful big sensor. But note, medium format is just the term used to describe things bigger than full frame. This is not nearly as big a sensor as some of the other medium formats out there. Taking a look, APS-C, full frame, we're familiar with. The larger square is the GFX, but things like the Hasselblad have a much bigger sensor. For this trip, I'm taking along two lenses, the 63mm f2.8 prime lens and then the 120mm f4 macro lens. That one has image stabilization built in. So far, the Fuji GFX has really impressed me. The performance has been nothing to complain about, and I'm really loving the files. Hugely detailed, and the colors are just lovely. Having said that, I've been shooting in conditions like this, bright and sunny daylight conditions when it's easiest to get focus. I'm hoping that over the next couple of days, I'm going to get some low light opportunities to put this through its paces, including a nighttime fire festival, hugely challenging light, and we'll see how this really does in those kind of tricky situations. Here's two shots where I push them 2 or more stops to bring back the shadows, and there's just fantastic detail there. Not something I like to do often, but when you need to, it's really great to have. Taking a look at this shot of a nun taken at ISO 1250, it's still got beautiful tonal range, and going in on 100% crop, you can see it has retained great image detail. In terms of actual ISO performance, here's a variety of different shots taken at different ISOs. Personally, I was really comfortable up to 640, even up to 800, and maxing out at about 1250. There was still decent dynamic range in those shots, and it wasn't introducing too much color noise. But beyond that, going to 32 and 6400, it's beyond what I would like to shoot this camera at. The dorji, or phallus, is a religious symbol in this part of the world. Especially in Bhutan, you see it painted on a lot of buildings. It's kind of seen as a symbol of creation. Chimilakang is a monastery in Punakha district, which was founded by Lama Drukpa Khinli, who was a god of fertility, and people still take pilgrimages there to help them conceive a child. The people living in the area are still living a traditional life, but a small village has popped up which supports the flow of pilgrims that come to the monastery to get blessings to help them try and start a family. By international standards, Bhutan is a very religious country. They follow the Vajrayana Buddhist tradition, with about 75% of the population traditionally following this belief. That's different to the Buddhism that you find in the Southeast Asia area. This is much more like you'll find in the neighbouring areas of India. One thing you'll be struck by in Bhutan is the number of monks and nuns. Until a few decades ago, it was the only way for kids to get a formal education. Now there are schools, and actually they're learning in English, but still for that more advanced education, some families will still send a child to become a monk or a nun and to learn the monastic tradition. So this little guy is 3 years old and he's a reincarnate Lama. He was in the temple we were just in. He walked straight over to our tour guest Jose and pointed at his Leica, and he's been playing with it ever since. Is that like one of your special skills? You're great at street photography?
He does have good taste.
Yeah, I agree. The fixed lens really can be quite versatile. Traditional arts and crafts are a big part of Bhutanese life. We passed these ladies outside a museum who were doing traditional weaving, and amazingly, in about an hour, they made several feet of width of this really long fabric. It was really quite impressive to watch. If you're a dog lover, Bhutan is a paradise. There's countless dogs that are well taken care of by the community but homeless, and because of their Buddhist beliefs, they don't believe in neutering or spaying the animals, so they just keep growing in number. Now, archery is the national sport of Bhutan, and it's a way of life. Men get together regularly at least once a week to participate in friendly competitions, and it's just so fun to watch as they sledge each other, sing and dance as each other gets a great shot. The Bhutanese people are proud of their culture and heritage, and one way they display that is with their national dress. Men on Monday to Friday to all jobs, whether you're a farmer or you're working for the government, will wear a go, which is basically a large, long piece of fabric with sleeves that you wrap around that essentially looks like a dress. Women wear something similar called a kira. Now they have day-to-day ones, but then they have much more colourful and fancy ones that they'll wear to any kind of festival. As they say, when in Rome, I've got my own go, so I'll be wearing that to the fire festival. Learning how to put your go on is a rite of passage for every Bhutanese man, but not something I've learned yet, so fortunately the hotel staff were willing to help me out. Each year, the Lama from the region will come to town and oversee the local monks who do a bunch of different dances and ceremonies that culminates in a fire cleansing ritual that's said to clean the village of bad spirits. The cornerstone of this is they light a huge arch up near the major temple of the area, and locals run through it 3 times to purify themselves of any wrongdoings from the previous year. Most of the performers are just normal people from the village or lay monks, people who've trained in religious training but are living a normal life. However, they train all year long their different mask dancers to perform them at these kind of ceremonies. It's a real celebration for the locals all getting together for this kind of a festivity. Then with everyone purified, the festival kicks off that evening and over the next weekend with all kinds of songs and dance. Okay, a bit more on the lenses. So with the 63mm being a 2.8 prime and the 120 being a f4 prime, I can see that people would be disappointed in that, especially if you're coming from DSLR world where primes are 1.8 or 1.4, and then, you know, like a 105 macro is usually an f2.8. They seem kind of slow. First thing, in the same way that you apply a crop factor when you're using an APS-C camera, you have a reverse crop factor on a medium format camera. So the field of view becomes wider. The 63 becomes close to a 50mm. It also means that you get a shallower depth of field at f2.8 because of that reverse field of view effect. So whilst an f2.8 still isn't going to give you a shallower depth of field as a 1.4 on a full frame, by no means, I have to say, if you're getting this for portraiture, which is the main reason I would consider it, the lenses are actually pretty great. Now, it sounds like I'm kind of giving them leeway on something that's subpar, but here's my reason why. First of all, if you ever shoot wide open at f1.4, if you're using anything but the absolute best lenses, you're going to find they're not that sharp, they tend to vignette, and their lenses just don't perform that well. They're not particularly contrasty either. And I'm sure everyone's had this. You focus on the eye, you slightly miss it, and you only have like a millimeter or two of depth of field, and then your shot's actually all out of focus. These ones, it's like they were designed for doing headshots. Whether you're shooting the 63 at f2.8 or the 120 at f4, it gives you just that plane of face in focus from tip of the nose to kind of the temple, and then a lovely fall off. And you don't have to worry about that it's too shallow a depth of field to catch the face. And shooting wide open, I haven't noticed bad vignetting, and the sharpness is astounding. So shooting them at their maximum potential is great. Of course, having said that, it does limit the light you're getting. You're only getting a 2.8 or an f4 of light, and in lower light situations, at higher ISOs, you're going to see that in the final image being degraded.
It was great to see these monks on a Sunday at Punakazong just playing and being kids running around with water guns. So, you know me, I'm going to join in. I took my water bottle out and we had a little water fight. Nice segue. I really found the GFX no problem in terms of weather sealing. Whenever there was a shower, I didn't bother to cover it up. It seemed to do totally fine and no moisture intruded. For Buddhist people in Bhutan, prayer is an important part of daily life, and throughout the country you'll see all kinds of different prayer wheels and prayer flags. They have scriptures written on the flags and rolled up inside the big prayer wheels, and they say that the flapping of the flag in the wind or the spinning of the wheel is sending the prayer out to the winds. So when you see one of these prayer wheels, you're meant to do clockwise turns around it. It rings the bell and sends your prayers out to be heard.
Okay folks, so I'm now in the Ha Valley in the west of Bhutan, and I have to say I am really loving this GFX. If I were going to buy a medium format mirrorless, this would definitely be a front runner. Of course there are some pluses and minuses. As I said, the files are looking great, and in bright daylight it's working a treat. In low light situations, however, it sometimes takes like a full second to pull focus, and I have missed some shots because of that. Also, at only 3 frames a second, it's no speed demon, right? And with the huge file sizes, even using the UHS-2 cards, it conks out after a few shots. So you're not going to use this for anything fast moving or where you want to get, say, 20 frames in a row. Let me just take a moment now to thank the 3 sponsors who are making this series of travel videos where I review tech in real life on the road possible. First of all, Lens Pro To Go, who are loaning me all of this gear to take on the trips. Then Soundstripe, we're getting all of our awesome music from them. And Lutify, we're using their grading technology to make the videos look great. So check out their links in the caption and show them some love.
Bhutan is one of my favourite places to visit, and sadly it's somewhere that very few travellers get to visit. It's so traditional and untouched, and the people are just so genuine, non-jaded and welcoming. It's a strange dichotomy to find people who are living such traditional lives yet are welcoming and encouraging people to come and experience their lifestyles. You can really get a sense of how they've been living for hundreds of years, and it's evident in the landscape, which hasn't changed over the time, the traditions, the dress. It's just a beautiful place to experience. I hope you'll get the opportunity
folks, sadly my
one
time
day
in Bhutan
soon.
has come to an end, and that means it's time to head back to New York and send the GFX back to Lens Pro To Go. Overall, I really enjoyed shooting with it. If I was relying on it for anything speedy or in low light situations, then I would have to reconsider it. But for day-to-day use, street use, studio use, general travel stuff, it's just a dream. Of course, like any new system, they're going to face the same problems of having a limited lens selection that they then need to build up along with accessories and everything. It's expensive, but it's a lot less expensive than the Hasselblad. It's big, but a lot smaller than the Pentax. So if you're looking for that 50 megapixel medium format sensor, this is really, I think, a great option. And as I've shown, the files are just looking fantastic. Do check out the link in the caption and you can download a couple of the raw files yourself, and do show the sponsors some love. All 3 of the companies are really great people, great to deal with, and they're making this series possible. So please do show them some love and let me know where you'd like to see me go next in my future videos and what gear you'd like to see tried out in real life. I'll see you soon.